Woo! What is up, geeks and gamers? It is your boy Q
and QMG.
And you already know we're here to bring you guys into the QUNIVERSE, where we talk to you guys about everything geeky, gamey, and nerdy. And another beautiful day. It looks like we're getting some spring early. It's been a beautiful weekend out here in the M-Town. But yes, QMG, how are you doing this lovely day?
Man, I've been doing really good. You know, with this weather being as nice as it is. Definitely. Also, just wanted it to be let known that in the Shelby County, Memphis area, be careful about the coronavirus that's been going around.
Definitely.
It is definitely more afflicted to the elderly and your little ones. For the adults / teenagers, even children, I believe.
Yes.
The older children, they should be relatively fine if they keep up these very, proper hygiene and washing their hands and stuff like that.
You got to wash them hands.
Hand sanitizer is definitely the godsend because of the alcohol that's in it. It is very much destroys any germs.
Neutralizes them.
Yes, so absolutely. But for the elderly and the babies, make sure they're properly taken care of. If you believe if you got some sniffles, try and get some Robitussin and
some gin gel.
No, seriously, get some Robitussin and get some protective masks just in case to be on the safe side. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yes, watch out for that. But enough of that. We're going to get straight into it. But first, I always like to say thank you guys for tuning in, geeks and gamers across the QUNIVERSE. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you for the love and support. We much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So straight into it. Today, this episode is going to be a lot oriented about the state of the video game systems and consoles and the state of the whole video game media outlet and where it's going in the next couple years. Because right now, we're actually in a stage where we're getting ready to go into the next generation of consoles, aka the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Woo! That's an awesome name.
Yeah, Q started out. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Rather,
both consoles. I'm gonna have both. This is gonna be the first time. It's going to be the first time for two reasons. This is going to be the first time I've actually stayed out for a midnight release for a console. And as well, it's going to be the first time I'm buying two consoles at one time. So we're going to see how that's going to work out. But I'm thinking I'm going to be leaning towards more of my game room gaming is going to be probably the PS5. But my home entertainment system downstairs in my living room is going to be based around the Xbox Series X. Just because I feel like Xbox, even though they said they're about the games this time around, that I still feel that they're going to be catering more towards home entertainment, especially with the design as almost a PC. Uncle Ellis, appreciate you for tuning in. Almost a living room PC.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. But yes, I'm definitely very intrigued about both systems. And I feel like if these systems go right, they might be the end-all, be-all to systems. They have the potential to be the last consoles that we might see for the next 20 years. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm very happy to see them. But the main thing I'm thinking about is probably price right now. Knowing the price, even though I'm still going to get both, but for the natural consumer, I think price is going to be a real selling point depending on how high or how small the price gap is.
Yeah.
So what you think?
I absolutely agree with everything you just said. Personally, from what I've been reading and everything what I'm currently reading now, there definitely seems to be Microsoft is in the lead.
I gotta get to, man. I can't give my opinion. I can't give my opinion on consoles and don't have both of them. I gotta get both of them.
You can. You absolutely can do that, y'all. You don't gotta.
I'm talking strictly for me and how I feel about giving my opinion. But yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, but we from what I've read and everything in regards to that is the simple fact that with the new age of technology and like we were speaking about previously, how it has moved away significantly from the graphical fidelity to now how the games will actually run, as well as the load times of said games. I feel like that's what's going to really be the standout of this console generation. I know for a fact that they're not going to that Sony is waiting to see what Microsoft is going to price the Xbox Series X.
Definitely, it's like a stalemate right now.
with the sole intention of going lower than what they've done. That is 100% what they're doing, and that is the major thing.
Yes. Do you think it's at one of them points where even if they lose money by dropping that price probably $100 lower, they're gaining money because of the idea that pricing is almost one of the most crucial points of the console system's lifespan and how many sales it does?
Personally, I believe that like I said, going back to the rumors, because there's literally not too much has been confirmed out of some specs. About outside of the specs, which are basically lining up to what most people believe the specs were going to be.
Yeah.
But other than that, a lot of the rumors indicate that both consoles will be highly cross-compatible. I mean, backwards compatible going far back, especially with the Xbox specifically.
Yeah.
Their library of backwards compatible games are allegedly going to go back as far as the very first Xbox. But it's going to be from those library of games that were at the time when it was Crossword Uni. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, Uni.
That they are going to be off, back when, if you remember, when the Xbox 360 came out, they had a select list of Xbox games that were backwards compatible. And that is
when the original PS3 came out, it was said to have every PS2 game compatible, the original base model.
But the reason I'm saying, I will just stay with Xbox. That's what that will be, as well as the other backwards compatible games that they have been going into.
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely going to let you know.
Yeah, for sure. But with this going back to what you mentioned about the PlayStation, that on the other hand I doubt that it'll really do anything that's really far back cross.
Appreciate you for tuning in, man.
Any big backwards compatibility, because of the simple fact that when they initially did that with the base vanilla PS3, that's what made it $599 US. So if they were to once again do that, unless they found a way to do it affordably in the years that's passed, where and I'm not just speaking on digital, because any game theoretically can have if the system has an emulator, it can theoretically run any game from any previous console. Look at the Wii U, look at the Nintendo Switch, and the Wii before. All three of those consoles had emulators built in where you could buy digitally previous generation titles and play it on your current generation hardware. So that isn't the problem. The problem would become the disc and making sure the disc drive is compatible with both Blu-ray and with the standard CDs that were prevalent for the PS2 era, PS1 era video games. So that, to me, that's why I'm a little bit...
Dre, appreciate you tuning in, bro.
I'll be surprised. PS3, yes. Because they're all Blu-ray discs. So that's... like that. So, it'll be not as hard to make it backwards compatible. But on the other hand, with PlayStation 2 and 1, I think that's a pipe dream.
Real, appreciate you tuning in, bro.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of agree with that sentiment. I definitely feel like this is a race to see. We're trying to stalemate each other out because by now we would have had both prices by now in any other instance. And I definitely feel like they're both trying to wait each other out, because as we've seen from history, the PS2 is the best-selling console, but the Xbox 360 was arguably the best console at the time when compared to the PS3. And then after that, when the Xbox tried to dive into another medium, which was television, the PS4 group, Sony, had saw that, and what they do, stalemated out. And as soon as they said that, they came, we're all about the game, we're all about this, we're all about that, and uprooted the Xbox One's whole time under the sun, the Xbox, Microsoft, and they took that spotlight. So the PS4 has been the major console for this generation, and then the Nintendo Switch, then the Xbox One. So it's definitely always going to be a rat race, no matter what point we are, even if that we are at a point where consoles are trying to work together and merge and make it. I would definitely tell Kim, like you said, what's up, where they make it not about the corporations, but about the gamers. But
I don't think that's the problem anymore. I believe that is just the corporate. It's just how do you balance that? I don't think that corporations are necessarily, because corporations, they're going to be doing in their best interest.
Definitely.
Because after the great Xbox One debacle, after that whole situation where they were so anti-consumer and trying to get into these markets that were not viable for gamers, every console since has been gamers first, consumer first. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. But the question is, how do you continue to evolve it when you've basically done all you can to fix it, when you went all in with this console generation to correct the mistakes of the past?
Definitely.
Everything is used. All the used games are every console is used game compatible. Every game has more or less a streaming service where you can go to play any games that you want. Yeah. With Microsoft, their Game Pass has been excellent, where if you just own that service, you can literally play any Xbox One game, third party or first party, as soon as it comes out, and play it just like that without owning the disc. And if you want to, you can just download it, and so long as you keep the service, you don't have to worry about an internet connection. It'll just be downloaded to your console for you to play, so long as you have that service. So that's why it's kind of hard to say backwards compatibility is the only real step forward. And that will probably dictate the price of the system, because the more generations you go, the further you go back in the generation pool, the more hardware you have to accommodate to make sure it runs well.
But yeah, and that definitely goes into just to piggyback off you said with something that we're going to talk about in a little bit, just adding a little context. You said that systems, where are they going to evolve from now? And then we talk about evolution. Now we're getting systems that are strictly trying to adhere to the casual gamer, as far as the Google Stadia.
Yes.
And with talking about evolution, we have a complete system running off of a server somewhere else. All you need is the Chromecast, the setup, and the controller, and it streams games to your TV, to your phone, and to your laptop. But with the problem with it is, it has my personal opinions on what the problems are. The games don't run as good as the consoles as far as resolution and game speed as far as frames per second. You also have the problems as well of the subscription, because there is a free subscription portion that you all have almost none of the privileges of the system. All you have is really a glorified tech demo. Then you have the premium, which you're paying for also after paying for the controller and the Chromecast if you don't have one, or the TV that you need to specifically use it. So really, it feels to me as it's a cash grab. But before we get into that, I'm just going to set it up. But we talk about evolution. It seems like they're trying to push this tower-based gaming console it feels like it's not going to work, and it feels like another gimmick. And as you can see by the price, by the numbers of the Google Stadia, it's doing horrible. Vaughn, appreciate you for tuning in. It's doing horrible. So that goes to show, where do we go with consoles and where do we go with gaming? Because if these two consoles are the end-all be-all, and we're not going to be improving on graphics for the next 25 years, what are we getting? Are we just getting glorified consoles that just really load your game fast? Or are we going to get more games that give us more story, and now we get better stories like back in the day, where before multiplayer was such a big component?
Well, to answer both of your questions in almost the same breath, Stadia was a failure because Stadia was just trying to capitalize, be a cash grab, nothing more, nothing less. Definitely Stadia from the Stadia on the goddamn Stadia was always set up to fail, and Stadia was always set up to fail because it was never really trying to be a viable console, because a lot of the things that were being promoted were vague at the time it was announced, as well as God dang, trying to, be so cutting edge. Oh, you could just download the games and all of that.
So they almost flat out lied about how good the Stadia was.
No, they didn't lie. It's just you had to pay attention to what they were talking about.
They used them loophole talks.
Yeah.
Beat around the bush, say a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I definitely agree. The Stadia, if we have the Stadia is supposed to be the new evolution of gaming, that is not a good sign for that type of style of gaming. I'm not impressed. I'm not happy about it, and I personally prefer consoles. I personally prefer that.
Well, like I said, it was all just like it was obvious from the jump street that the Stadium wasn't anything like that.
Yes.
Just it was very obvious that that's why no one bought it, because everyone knew it was a scam. It was It was not proper. It wasn't a viable console. It was going to be a waste of money to the most apt description of a waste of money that you can possibly find. So that is what.
So do you speaking on consoles, back to consoles. Do you feel like with the success of the PlayStation VR that Microsoft is going to reach out to either the Oculus Rift or the team at Vive to get their own VR link?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't believe that the VR is as successful as it once was. Mm-hmm. For the simple fact that it is like for the simple fact that it's not no real games have come out for the VR since.
Yeah.
All the games that have come out for the VR have been quote unquote VR exclusives for other VR headsets.
Yeah.
And now everything is being slowly dripped out across the Oculus and PlayStation VR and such. So I don't think VR is as much as a sought after commodity like it once was back in 2017. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's not going to be a major focus unless there's a major developer who wants to use VR for their next marquee game. But yeah, because that's a lot of that's another thing. Making something VR compatible is something else that varies in hardware power. So I don't think VR is going to be a major selling point of the next console generation, nor do I think that it'll, that they're really pushing for something. Going back to what you was talking about as far as load times, I think load times is a microcosm to make the story better, to make the story flow better for video games. I think they work in tandem and not either or.
I think the main problem with VR is you can't have extended, prolonged play sessions. If they get it in some magical or scientific way, they can make a system that no matter who plays it, no matter what type of frames it is, no matter what type of motion it's doing, that does not cause motion sickness and still keeps the integrity of the frames per second. I feel like there will be a huge expanse in VR abilities to immerse players in games, and it'll be a more financial game, because right now a lot of people get turned off from VR, and I've experienced this with certain games that I really wanted to play, like Reeves. Reeves is a VR game where you play in a mech suit and move around. Big Charles, appreciate you for tuning in, but it causes, after extended play, it causes you to feel nauseated.
Yeah, but I don't think that's possible. I don't think you'll ever reach a point where that is a possibility, for the simple fact that you can't just that's all one. That's just one fluid motion. It's not something that you can. Motion sickness is going to come in tandem with it. That's just it. That's just
now games that doesn't have a lot of motion. I've never experienced sickness, not one time playing Resident Evil 7.
But see, that's the thing. It also comes down to person.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying.
It comes down.
Jay, appreciate you for tuning in, bro.
It comes down to the individual. It's not necessarily something that that can be misjudged. That can be not misjudged, but rather judged on trying to fix an individual game. It's just when you buy VR, you take the risk that you can get motion sickness depending on who you are.
In the comments, guys, let us know what you get. Geeks and Gamers, let us know what y'all gonna get, the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Let us know in the comments what you guys are getting and what y'all looking forward to from those consoles. But yes, moving forward, back to the Stadia, just for a small tidbit. With the Stadia crushing almost defeat at its own hands, do you feel like it can make a comeback or revamp or even evolve from itself and become better.
No, it's done. Google doesn't naturally stay on with projects that they make, and that's even if they are moderately successful. They normally put it out. They normally put it out, see what it does in the initial phase, and then let it die off. So, because that's less.
Like if it doesn't work, we just like, oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Do you feel like the Stadia inadvertently allowed both Microsoft and Sony to be like, well, they might be coming for us. Let's team up for a minute. You believe that was one of the factors of the crossplay?
No, I think crossplay was just a microcosm of people not being console purists anymore. They're not. The console wars are more or less over and dead because every single major
Grant, appreciate you for tuning in.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you. Every major console maker has had their peaks and troughs, and at this point, especially with the creation of the Nintendo Switch, they're not in competition with each other anymore because they're doing such vastly different things. When the first party Nintendo game comes out, it's probably going to reset the standard for high quality games, and PlayStation will probably be right behind it as far as cinematics go. Yeah. Whereas Nintendo will probably lean more towards the gameplay and experience. Not saying PS4's exclusive won't have that same thing, but it'll definitely lean more towards the cinematics and the grandiose over some gameplay aspects. And Xbox is trying to, still trying to rebound from their fiasco with Xbox One X and, the initial Xbox One launch. So definitely that's what they'll be trying to fix in the future. So yeah, that's why I feel like everyone's now on board with crossplay, because they now know people aren't console purists anymore. They might say it, but if dope games, they have the means to buy the other console and they have a game that catches their eye, they're just going to play it. And they're going to play it to their leisure. And that's just going to be it. And that's just going to be all, because there's no longer any real need to pick a winner, to pick a winning side, because more or less everyone is winning at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Two things. I feel like you said, there are no console purists, and at the same time, people want to play with their friends again.
Yes.
People are at a point where we have these AAA titles span across multiple consoles. Why would I buy that console, that game twice just to play it with a friend, when we could all play the console? Say I have 5 friends that have a 6-player game, or 4 friends that have a 6-player game on PlayStation and one of them on Xbox. Why would I buy that game or the console just to play that one game when we could all play on the same console? Same game, just through different consoles. So
absolutely.
I definitely feel like we're at a point where developers are at a point where they're like, we need to come at different angles to get financial gain, and crossplay was at this time is one of the best financial gains. I honestly feel like they're going to use sometimes, in some aspects, play with your friends, and sometimes they're going to use that old console wars concept, who's the best, with crossplay. I feel like both of those aspects are going to come into play, especially when you have all these competitive fighting games, you have competitive sports games, you have competitive shooters. I definitely feel like they're going to use that, and I think in the next coming years we're going to see a lot of crossplay, competitive, and cooperative, a lot of things coming out of that. But I definitely think all of those things encompass why this is such a great console generation. I think it's coming up, probably the best we've had in a long time. And with that being said, who do you think is going to have the best fiscal year between, and not Nintendo Switch, because Nintendo Switch is kind of transcending 2 console generations at once, but between the PS5 and Xbox Series X?
I personally believe it's going to come down to whoever has the lowest price. That is what is going to come down to, above all else, above games, above above aesthetics, above games. It's going to come down to who has the lowest rather. So the lowest.
So whoever has that low price drop soon is gonna be the guy that you're rocking with, as far as who you believe is gonna have the best fiscal year for that fiscal life cycle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I definitely could agree with that. I think that we've got so hung up on price.
I'm just showing you an article real quick.
I think we got so hung up on price. Yeah, I see it. With that, that's crazy. With that, with the consoles, I definitely think that we're at a point. So it really just threw me off.
I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
You were basically saying that you agree that it comes down to
yes, fiscal price is the price drop. But yeah, but like I said, I'm gonna have both. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of synopsis on both, and I'm really just happy to see where we're going. But enough of the consoles. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes.
Well, let's hop into this. So we're going to do the other one, or do you want to talk about the Batmobile first?
Definitely want to talk about that. Goddamn Batmobile.
We'll just give our quick thoughts on it. Well, yeah, the Batmobile.
We already knew what it was going to look like.
More or less. I'm not going to say we already knew.
A muscle car.
We had an idea of what we would probably go with. But yeah, definitely the Matt Reeves dropped the very first official look of both Batman and the Batmobile. And I say official because, of course, we had our homeboys, Cousin Pookie and Ray Ray up there as security.
No, they be tripping at Ray Ray.
You know, or the security guards, rather, were off that brown liquor and menthols, and they didn't see homeboy snapping them pictures up. But yes, Matt Reeves released the first official picture for the Batmobile, which definitely is very early 80s Batmobile inspired, when it was definitely a Corvette. Based in the shape of a Corvette. Not a lot of people know this, but the tank Batmobile didn't really become prevalent until The Dark Knight Returns, and the subsequent comic books featured that more tankish Batmobile. Beforehand, it was always presented in the latest sports car of the decade, or the year rather. So, you know, Corvettes, Ferraris, something along those lines, you know. Back, you know, like even going back to the Adam West era of Batmobile. So it definitely is paying homage to that, and fits the bill that, this is Bruce's second year and he's, you know, not cobbling, but he's slowly getting the hang of it. It makes sense that his Batmobile is, you know, looks more sports car-y than tank that's going to wreck everything in sight, a la the Nolan and Snyder, and even the Burton Schumacher era Batmobiles. I personally think it's pretty cool, looks pretty dope, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it looks in action. Q?
I think it looks really cool. Like I said, I'm really happy with the aesthetic they're going with. We got these even more realistic than the Nolan trilogy's esque Batman, and I'm definitely ready to see it. And I like the car. It's cool. I would like to see it in action with the gadgets and weapons it has on it. But that leads into my question for you, QMG. What are your top favorite Batmobiles that we've seen in the live action?
My number one favorite Batmobile is the BVS DCE Ben Affleck Batmobile. That to me is the perfect blend of everything that I would assume Batman to drive in. I like the I just like it. It was like, and it kind of Arkham Knight kind of helped push it over the edge for me. But the Tumbler from the Nolan trilogy really didn't age all that well for me personally. Like it didn't when it first came out, and during the heyday of the Nolan trilogy, I couldn't get enough of the Tumbler. But as the years progressed, and especially like I said, when BVS came out and I saw that Batmobile, it definitely painted a better picture of how I prefer my Batmobiles. Can't sleep on the animated series / Burton movie versions of the Batmobiles. Those are definitely classics in their own right. But just the amalgamation of, because the BVS Batmobile definitely has like amalgamation of sports car and tank. It got like the kind of sleekness that you would expect from like a higher end Ferrari or you know, something like that, but it has the bulk and bulkiness and weapons of a tank. So I just really enjoy that and how smooth it looked driving around. What is your favorite?
The Nolan trilogy is definitely my favorite. I loved the whole vibe of it. It felt like it was just really Batmobile-ish, and not to mention how the Bat cycle comes out after it's being destroyed, or however he shoots it out, and the Bat cycle was so cool. I just felt like that version really encompassed what I think the Batmobile would be looking like. I wouldn't think it would be just some sleek sports car that could be easily destroyed, or a sports car with the top down. I wouldn't think of a Batmobile to be like that. Then I would have to say second would probably be like you said, the BVS one. Though I always like those bigger, clunkier styles because I would believe that's what Batman would drive in. If not a super sleek car, I would think of a more tankish car that can take a lot of damage, a lot of blunt force, knock some guys off the road. But yeah, definitely the Nolan trilogy car would probably be my favorite. But I definitely think I like the era they're going in. And I think, obviously, the Batmobile is going to be bulletproof.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be a kind of 007 vibe to
yes.
it.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
A 007 vibe to it. I wouldn't even be surprised if they have beanbag shooters out of the front or something like that, kind of reminiscent to 007 for you guys don't know. I think it's his Jaguar that has the 2 machine guns in the front. So yeah, definitely. But I'm definitely happy to see where that leads and the aesthetic and the tone that they're setting with these minor retro throwbacks instead of these new upscale futuristic sleek models.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything else about the Batmobile?
No, I'm good.
All right, so we're going to hop into the last topic of the day, of the night, of the evening. Now that daylight saving times have come for us,
Losing that hour of sleep
has come for us like a thief in the night,
straight like that.
But yeah, with this past weekend, or this week today actually, NetherRealm Studios, the people who made Mortal Kombat, had created a tournament kind of equivalent to Capcom. Capcom does a tournament called the Capcom World Cup, and they have their own finals that revolve around Street Fighter V. And NetherRealm has done the same for this game, their current game, Mortal Kombat 11. And the finale of it was called Final Combat. And this is not NetherRealm's fault, but the coronavirus that's been going out and about had caused them to cancel any sort of live audience attendance for the game, as well as having they're called last chance qualifiers, meaning that anybody who was in their local tournaments or went to any moderate tournaments, and they weren't able to win, they would have been able to go to Final Combat and fight their way into the tournament. But that was canceled because they were trying to keep crowds down and not, potentially spread any coronavirus in the Chicago area. So, yeah, that wasn't their fault, but a lot of people online, especially tournament players and the people who were planning to go, they were upset because they were made aware of this literally yesterday. And more than likely, they had already purchased their tickets or were en route to Chicago where Final Combat was being had. And they, while their tickets for Final Combat would have been refunded, their airfare and their or money that they put elsewhere to get there wouldn't be refunded, and that's basically time that they took wasted because they weren't aware of this fact until much later. And while there have been people who have spoken and said this was kind of a last minute deal and stuff of that nature, I'm very certain that a decision like this was kind of made, should have been made some days in advance to properly compensate for the change of venue and change of schedule. So a lot of people have been upset about that. And it kind of leads to a larger issue with the NetherRealm Studios as of late. And this is why I like to call it the MK11 timeline error. Mm-hmm. Because MK11, for a lot of people, not saying that everyone, but for a lot of people, have been a disappointment, from things like gameplay to decisions made behind the scenes to lack of communications on a wide variety of things. Yeah. And it kind of all reached a crescendo a couple of months back when the Evolution fighting game tournament, otherwise known as Evo. They left MK11 off of their major games. While there will certainly be side tournaments for MK11, because that Evo does side tournaments for almost every fighting game. As far as the major tournaments with prize pools, the money payouts and stuff of that nature, MK11 will not be featured in that. And the only other major tournament before Evo that it will be featured in will more than likely be CEO. But with that being said, CEO has a high chance of also following suit with potentially canceling their event, seeing as other outside events have been canceling their, been canceling what they have going on, such as South by Southwest. That is a major film festival that it's been completely canceled. Also, Emerald City Comic Con, the major Seattle-based Comic Con, that was completely canceled as well because of the coronavirus scare. So that it's not a guarantee that CEO will happen. CEO is, I believe, a couple of months away. And so that is very concerning for NetherRealm Studios, as opposed to in August, where hopefully, ideally, the coronavirus will be, contained and not be as widespread, or, there will be ways to properly combat the coronavirus. And
JB, appreciate you for tuning in, bro.
Thank you. And quarantine people, so no more events would be compromised. But with that said, it still is concerning because it feels like NetherRealm kind of rested on their laurels with the release of MK11. And while, like I said, gameplay, your enjoyment of the gameplay is high, completely subjective. You dictate whether it's enjoyable for you or not. There are a lot of other things that were made, done that, can't be defended as easily or at all.
Yeah.
Such as communication, the way they put out their DLC character cycles, some answers to questions about certain design choices, and just certain things like that. I know for Evo, for example, there was a huge controversy about the reasoning behind why MK11, one of the most successful fighting games of the past 10 years, were left out, whereas games such as Grand Blue, a game at the time hadn't even come out yet, and by the time Evo rolls around would have already been out. Thank you, JB. By the time Evo comes out, it would have been out for at least 3 months. As well as the Marvel vs. Capcom 2, a 20-plus-year-old game, also having a major top
tragic
spot. It's Marvel, baby. It's not that tragic.
Tell that to Marvel Infinite.
Well, that's because that game was actually tragic. But truthfully, it was, the fact that game...
Ain't no coronavirus this way, food. Modelo all day, fools. Dang, Modelo.
You need to stick to the brown liquor, JB.
Straight like that. Yeah. Anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
You already know it's in this cup.
But no.
Just Gatorade. Powerade.
With that being said, it's that controversy of people have been saying, talking about the event holder not ever really rocking with NetherRealm Studios, which isn't entirely true. Were a couple of instances back when MK9 came out, but that was because people were unsure about MK's resurgence. But definitely during the definitely during the MKX and Injustice 2 eras, they definitely got the same amount of love and respect that a Smash Brothers got, if not more. Ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry. And I believe that it was kind of overblown and whatnot, and it's led to some division in the community. And NetherRealm, the developers themselves, have been, in my opinion, and a lot of others' opinions, well, you know what? Drop the pretenses. They've been piss poor with some of their communications. Whereas, like, for example, when the game first released, normally NetherRealm games, and no one has ever been upset with them in a large scale, they would normally tell you exactly who all their DLC characters are for their first season and the price point, so you would know what you're getting into before you buy the game, more or less, for at least for their first pack of seasons. And they opted not to do that with this season. They announced Shang Tsung at last year's C2E2, and for 3 months after the game's release, there are people who bought the Combat Pass, which is their season pass, to download the DLC characters without any real inclination of who the DLC characters would be outside, unless you, of course, read the leaks that were going on that leaked not only all of the DLC characters for Season 1, but potentially 3 of the Season 2 DLC characters. But that's not really a proper way to find out that your favorite characters or new characters would be introduced. And it took NetherRealm a whole 4 months to actually release those characters, and it's been conflicting on whose decision it was. And that type of confliction in tone and communication is bad for a game, as well as design choices and patches that have rarely been addressed in
Uncle V. Appreciate you. Thank
you. Those type of news being poorly relayed, the combat cast that they would do on Twitch that usually once upon a time was full of life and information it's really been dead. They're like the type of enthusiasm that they once showed, especially during the MKX and Injustice 2 era, have not been prevalent in these combat casts. And what I used to always make sure to look forward to them every Wednesday, I more often than not forget that they even are a thing and miss out on that. As well as, and not to go into this whole, woke or, cultural aspect of a video game, even though I'm always a proponent for representation and whatnot. But there were a large contingent of fans upset at some of the changes made to the characters, the lack of fan service, and that means basically fan service is how sexy can your characters look, male or female. And Mortal Kombat is more than, famous for their characters looking a certain way, especially for the lady characters, specifically the lady ninjas. And while they definitely nailed the face departments, because all of the Mortal Kombat characters look like they come off of the magazine. Looks like they come off of a Vogue magazine because they definitely went all in on the facial captures. Mm-hmm. There are certain ladies in the game that look like they were purposefully toned down. When you compare it to MKX and especially MK9.
Yes.
And the reasoning, while I'm definitely never in the mindset of women have to look ultra sexy in all of the fighting games ever, but the reasonings for it did sound kind of faux woke. Not really woke, but they were giving that excuse to try to get points for it, especially when you consider a character like Sindel, who, despite her appearance, where she looked very sinister and evil in the original Mortal Kombat games, she was a hero. She was a queen who was very kind and honorable, but was brainwashed by Shao Kahn to, align herself with him. But once they defeat Shao Kahn, she goes back to being good, and that is actually one of the strongest heroes in Mortal Kombat lore. And with MK11, when she was reintroduced, she's basically a one-dimensional sex dominatrix that doesn't have any character, that all of the character depth she had was gone. And it kind of, it's kind of backwards. You say you want to make these women characters look more realistic and respectable and not just some sort of one-trick pony, but yet the one character that has the most depth, you take all of her depth away and you make her exactly that, just a character that, talks to you like how a Borderlands character talks. And if you play Borderlands, you know that they love speaking in innuendo and over, talking crude and stuff like that. So it's definitely kind of backwards, and that's definitely rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And it's sad and interesting to see because it kind of could have been nipped in the bud earlier. But I think people were so concerned with Capcom failings and stuff like Street Fighter V and more, like we mentioned, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, that no one really picked up on some of the red flags that NetherRealm were indulging in. And now it's kind of reached a crescendo at the worst possible time because, I've going through my Twitter feeds and scouring and researching, and a lot of people are saying that the NRS scene is dying, if not dead, because with with the way Final Combat ended up, no Evo appearance, and uncertainty about CEO, it could unless they go extremely hard with Season 2 of MK11, like gameplay overhaul, adding in things that everyone wants, and fixing quality of life changes, it's not looking pretty hot for MK11 in the long run, which is sad because NetherRealm said they were going to support this game longer than any other NRS game to date, so I'm definitely concerned. Q, what are your thoughts?
Well, you kind of much said everything. Really nothing there to say.
Do you agree with anything I said?
I don't really have any justification on what they're doing. All I can speak on is the game. I like the game. Like you said, they definitely have really kind of slowed down on promoting it as much as they were at the beginning. They definitely took a lot of time off from it. Like you said, the combat cast early were really, really inviting for more players to get into Mortal Kombat, and now I don't even see them on my timeline on YouTube anymore. So I definitely understand that. try to be open-minded about NetherRealm Studios because all the games they've produced since Injustice 1 I've liked. But like you said, it's been a lot of things that have kind of soiled the NetherRealm Studios name right now, and pretty much dealing with MK11. I personally love MK11. I think it's a fun game. I like the style. I like the fighting. I think it's the best Mortal Kombat I've played in a long time. I think it's better than MKX. The only difference between MKX is they had a better roster of DLC characters. But MK11 is definitely the better game.
Which, to be fair to MK11, we don't know the full life. We don't know if this is the last of their DLC characters.
You had Jason, Alien, Predator, and you had Leatherface. I don't really know who else can beat those guys as far as DLC. And all we had now is Joker, who we played in other NetherRealm games, and other Mortal Kombat games, and Sindel, Shang Tsung. The cool thing about Shang Tsung is we had the movie Shang Tsung, but
we have the thumbnail and Spawn.
They're still not better than Jason and Alien and Predator.
Alien and Predator, I concede, but the only reason Jason was so good, was so loved, was because Jason was also very fun to play.
But it's Jason though. Jason Voorhees.
If Jason had a whack moveset, I could very easily write Jason.
Yeah, whack moveset, but it's Jason though.
What sets Jason over the edge is that he's fun to play. If it was just Jason with a so-so moveset, I wouldn't be. Even though Predator and Alien played extremely well, even if they also had I would say this, I would prefer a Predator and Alien with a so-so moveset because it's still Predator and Alien over a Jason with a so-so moveset. But go back to what you were saying.
It was just, I don't know, to the NetherRealm, hopefully they'll get out of this slump because I'm a fan of Mortal Kombat, but I haven't played it myself in a minute, but I'm definitely a fan of it, and I would like to see them actually excel at the game that I think is probably the best version of Mortal Kombat that they have made. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I just think that we need to support these games more, especially the good ones, because it's easy to get hung up on older games that we have fond memories of, like Marvel 2. Prime personally, I don't know why people still play it putting on the ballot for tournaments. Me personally, I think it should be on the sidecar, maybe one of those smaller tournaments.
Well, to be fair to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and with that type of game making, that type of appearance at EVO, it more than likely came down to a Disney Marvel decision. They probably went to EVO and allowed them to do that for some sort of major announcement. If not, then that's fine too, but more than likely it didn't just come down to Wizrobe just wanting Marvel 2, because Wizrobe's not even a major Marvel 2 fan himself. Mm-hmm. That's kind of common knowledge to certain people, to some in the FGC. But to be fair, it wasn't like people were expecting Marvel 2 to ever show back up in a major capacity.
Who did?
It was kind of a surprise for most people.
Yeah, but definitely. So with NetherRealm, like I said, I hope they make it out of their slump, and I hope we can get back to playing some good Mortal Kombat. Because Mortal Kombat is one of the best fighting games out right now, and one of the greatest franchise in gaming history.
Absolutely.
So we hate to see anything like this happen. Definitely with one of the most beloved franchises, because that's kind of what happened to Killer Instinct, which is personally, from this generation of video games, is one of my top 5 fighting video games to come out in the last 15 years.
I personally put it as I agree with Maximilian, the most popular fighting game personality, in that Killer Instinct is the best fighting game of the last decade.
Killer Instinct was awesome
from presentation, gameplay, a whole 9 yards. But yes, I also agree. I'm not. I've never been a major fan or proponent of MK11. There's a lot gameplay wise I would do differently, and with that being said, you don't want these type of companies to fail, to take major L's in a lot of respects, because like I've said on previous episodes about the subject, fighting games are extremely niche. They're not shooters or RPGs or action adventures. Fighting games, when they the sales that MK11 and Smash Brothers get, while they're amazing, compare that to Uncharted or Call of Duty, it looks paltry. But then again, that's like saying comparing an R-rated movie's box office to a PG-13 or PG movie's box office. If it overperforms drastically, that's amazing, but you don't expect it to do that all the time.
Yes.
But even with that said, these video game studios that, oversee these fighting games, they might look at it and, look at the response to it. It might try to freeze it or can it. So, and especially with Injustice 3 more than likely being ridiculously around the corner, more so than we realize, that can affect that in a way too. So it's very interesting to see, and I just hope, like I agree, I hope NetherRealm gets their stuff together and makes a huge comeback, preferably with MK11 to make some more noise with it.
And if you guys don't have MK11, it was free. I think it's free until the 9th.
The DLC characters are free. So their whole, it's been rotating. And MK11 itself is discounted for about $29.99 for the regular version, $35 for the deluxe.
So definitely go try that out. For all my fighting gamers, definitely go try MK11. It's I like the game. I think it's a great fighting game. I think it has great mechanics. Go try it out. But with that being said, this is the time. This has been the time for Into the QUNIVERSE for this weekend. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes.
You already know it's your boy Q
and QMG. And
if you ain't got it, get it. And if you can't get it,
figure it out.
Let's go. Yes, sir. So thank you guys.
Shout out to John Laurinaitis.
Thank you, Geeks and Gamers, for tuning in. Like I always say, you can go find us on YouTube at Into the QUNIVERSE. And you also can find us on my Facebook page, and as well as the Facebook page for Geeked Up Media and Into the QUNIVERSE. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll get up with you guys next week. Peace.
Yes, sir. Oh, and sorry, no soundboard again this week, y'all. Next week for show.
I think they kind of figured that.
I know, but I just wanted to say it again because I forgot.